Hi everyone, my name is Genghis John. Today we're going to be discussing my personal favorite civilization, Inca. In treaty, the Inca are known for their strong economy, inexpensive, quick building units, and perhaps most notably for their oppressively huge starting army. Before we get to the actual gameplay, let's discuss the Inca treaty deck. The deck on your screen is the one we will be using today. The nice thing about Inca is that they use a one-size-fits-all deck. Regardless of where you play, with the exception of water-dominated maps, you can always use the same deck. There are no water maps in the treaty map selection pool, so you should not run into any issues with that in ranked, nor in most treaty lobbies. There are of course viable variations to this deck. However, this is a great setup to at least get you started on your Inca journey. Also, unlike most civilizations, the Inca will always have access to native allies through their American Allies shipment, which we will discuss in more detail shortly. And as such, you will always benefit from taking cards that make your natives more potent in combat and reduce their recruitment cost. Next, let's review a few of the more important cards that will determine how we will be building our economy and preparing for the battle at the end of treaty. The first card we will be discussing is the Llama Lifestyle card. This shipment increases the effectiveness of llamas working in your community plaza, allowing you to task llamas to your plaza instead of villagers. Although the llama work at roughly half the effectiveness of a villager on your plaza, using this card allows you to still make use of your community plaza without having to waste population space or valuable villager time when they could be gathering resources for you instead. Note that although you can task llama to your community center without this card, they are significantly less effective. Next up on the list is the Camayos shipment. This card is another example of how unique the Inca civilization is. Most civilizations that trade one resource for another will trade one resource for a higher, or in some cases, lower amount of the resource they are trading for. Inca are the only civilization in the game that will trade one resource for an equal amount of another. In this case, we are trading food into coin. Also, Inca are the only civilization in the game that can perform a trade like this an infinite amount of times, not just once. At first glance, you might wonder why bother trading one resource for an equal amount of another. And although it seems odd at first, it comes down to the rate that villagers gather a given resource in Age of Empires 3. Pretty much in every situation, food is gathered by villagers at a fairly significantly higher rate than coin or wood is, as shown here. Meaning that by concentrating almost entirely on food, rather than mixing in some coin gathering villagers, we will end up with a total resource count that is higher. Additionally, being able to concentrate fully on food allows us to ignore cards that increase coin gather rates and frees up more space in our deck for other cards. The next shipment on our list is Huanca Support. This card is available in Age 2, and although it costs 250 coin, it provides us with an early additional town center. Where most civilizations can only have one town center until Age 3, Inca are able to create two. But even more important than this shipment not only gives them an early town center, it also increases the total build limit of town centers by 1, meaning that in Age 3, you can have 4 town centers, while most other civilizations can only have 3, putting you in a great position to pull ahead of your opponents early economically. Another shipment we should discuss is Autarky. Inca's houses, when built, will by default provide you with a trickle of food, shown here. With this card, you can change the Concha houses to instead provide you with wood. Remember what we said when talking about the Camayos shipment. Food is gathered more efficiently by villagers than wood is, but not Concha houses. Conchas gather wood at exactly the same rate as they do food. meaning we can change our concha houses to gather wood as necessary, which frees up villagers that would need to work on wood to instead work on food, and equaling out to a better economy overall. The final shipment on the list is American Allies, mentioned earlier. American Allies allows you to select a native ally out of a list of 3, regardless of whether you've allied yourself with one of the naturally spawning native villages on the map. These 3 choices will always be the same. I should note that all 3 natives have their pros and cons, and they are all viable options. The first native on the list is the Carib. These are my personal choice in most games, as not only are they units they provide quite strong in their own right, but they also increase the damage of all your hand infantry and archers. As Inca, that means it affects your Chimu runners, jungle bowmen, Chasqui, plumed spearmen, macemen, and even your war chief. Although funny and interesting that it affects your war chief, it is very unlikely you will get much use out of that. Second native you can ally with are the Mapuche. The Mapuche provide you with a mounted unit that is quite effective versus enemy cavalry, as they have a ranged attack that not only does bonus damage versus cavalry, but will also slow them down. In addition to this, the Mapuche slightly reduce the coin cost of all your units, which can help your trade last a little bit longer. And they provide additional siege damage to all your hand infantry, which for the Inca means the Chimu runner, the Chasqui, the plumed spearman, the maceman, and yes, once again, even the war chief. Final native on the list are the Zapotec. The Zapotec unique unit is a melee infantry unit strong against cavalry. In addition to this unit, the Zapotec give your villagers a 10% bonus to food gathering, which can help you attain a higher trade and a better economy overall. Also, this native gives you a bonus damage on hand infantry, which, just like the Mapuche, affects your Chimu runners, Chasqui, plume spearmen, macemen, and I bet you did not see this one coming, yes, the war chief as well. Let's quickly go over Inca units, especially if you're not familiar with native civilizations. Taking on a Mesoamerican civilization right off the bat can be a bit confusing. This is going to be a rather lengthy segment because, much like everything else about the Inca, their unique units are quite, well, unique. The first unit we'll discuss is the Chasqui. Chasquis are extremely fast hand infantry unit. They have a 4.5 multiplier versus mercenaries, as well as a 3x multiplier versus treasure guardians. So they're quite useful helping your explorer take treasures early game, and also if your opponent is playing something like Germany or Swedes or another civilization that likes to use mercenaries in their army composition, these guys will trade extremely efficiently against them. Cheskies are also quite cheap, coming in at only 40 coin and 40 wood, and they do not count towards your total population. However, your build limit of these guys is only 5, although you can send this Amara support card, which will increase that build limit by an additional 5, up to 10. In addition to their combat powers, they also can build you town centers and tombos, which are just trading posts. So that's extremely useful. Next up is the Chimu Runner. The Chimu Runner is called a shock infantry unit. What this essentially means is they act very similarly to hand cavalry, such as a hussar. They share most of the same strengths and weaknesses with those units. But in addition to this, they also have this ability called Chimu Maneuver, which will temporarily increase the run speed of all your Chimu runners anywhere on the map. So keep in mind that if you have one group of Chimu runners selected, and that's the only ones you want to use this power on, if you have a whole another group of Chimu runners over here, it will go on cooldown for that group as well. So just keep that in mind. Even if they're off screen or whatever, it'll still affect them. But anyway, it makes them faster and they can't be slowed down. So this really is helpful if you want to really get up close and personal with your opponents to take out those priority targets like artillery or light infantry. Next is the Jungle Bowman. This is a very classic light infantry unit. It has a multiplier versus heavy infantry as well as light cavalry, as well as negative multipliers versus heavy cavalry and shock infantry, such as the Chimu Runner. There is a added bonus with these guys in that whenever they attack, they apply a poison to their target. You won't really get much out of this in Treaty. It's a lot more useful in Supremacy. But it does ignore all armor types, the dot does, so that's quite useful. Next up is the Plume Spearman. This is a very typical heavy infantry melee unit with very high siege damage and multipliers versus heavy cavalry and shock infantry. Yeah, there's not much to say about these guys. They're really good at taking down buildings quickly, as well as dealing with cavalry, but you probably won't make a ton of these guys in your army, just because they do cost quite a lot of food. So it can be surprising how fast your food goes away if you're spamming these guys. Next is the Mace Man. The Mace Man is similar to the Plumed Spearman in that they have very high siege damage, very high attack, but they also do splash damage. So anytime they'll attack, they'll hit anything around them. They do have multipliers versus cavalry and shock infantry, but these guys are very expensive. 150 food and 150 coin. They also cost 3 population space, so they'll fill up your population really fast. I don't recommend using these guys very much. They will drain your economy very quickly, and they don't trade well versus things like skirmishers. So yeah, you probably won't use these guys very much, very sparingly, or really at all. Almost done here. We have the Bolas Warriors next. These guys are really cool. They are an anti-cavalry unit. And just like the Mapuche that we mentioned earlier, they actually will throw this bola at whatever their target is, and it'll slow everything around that target. So it's really effective at stopping cavalry charges. And they do have multipliers versus them as well, so they do very high damage to them. And they only cost 1 population space, and they're not terribly expensive. They are relatively expensive, but for how well they trade, they are quite cheap. Alright, of the last of the typically trained units is the Elite Huraka. The Huraka does siege damage instead of regular range damage, which means that they actually ignore a lot of armor types, specifically this type of armor, which is the ranged armor. So they will go right through like skirmisher armor, for example. Skirmishers usually have pretty decent resistances versus ranged attack. They, even more importantly though, also ignore artillery armor. So a few of these guys hitting a cannon will destroy it rather quickly. However, they are relatively expensive, like especially in gold. And since we're trading for gold, you want to be careful about spamming these guys because you'll drain your trade quite quickly. And they also cost 2 population space. So finally on the list we have the War Chief. The War Chief technically acts just similar to like the Mace Man and the Plume Spearman in that he's a heavy infantry anti-cavalry unit. However, this is not how you're going to be using your War Chief. I don't recommend ever having this guy on the front line. The reason for that is we send this card Sapa Inca. which does make your war chief stronger, but more importantly, it provides a aura for all native, as in allied native units, such as the Carib, the Mapuche, units like that. And as you can see, when I walk towards my war chief with my native, you'll see this little outline around him. That means that the aura is active, and if you walk too far away, it'll disappear. So really what you want to do with this guy is you want him positioned at the back of your army, so you keep him alive so that this aura is always active. And you want to set this to stand ground. That way he won't rush in and die. That pretty much covers the military units. There is also the priestess, which I don't have shown here. The priestess is trained at the community plaza. They cost 2 population space, and they can heal your units as well as convert enemy units, which sounds interesting, but there really isn't much use for this at all in treaty. So primarily what you're going to be using your priestesses for is you'll use them alongside llamas to staff your community plaza, because they act as 1.5 villagers at your community plaza, which makes them very efficient. And the community plaza provides a lot of effects, such as increases the speed at which you can create units, as well as increasing the damage of your units. So having the most efficient possible unit on your community plaza will make all of your units stronger. You can have up to 10 priestesses staffing the community plaza, and you'll want the maximum on there of 10, alongside 15 llamas. And that about covers the Inca units. Hopefully that gives you guys a bit of an idea on how you want to use your army and what kind of units you want to send out based on what your enemy is building. Final thing that we should discuss before we get to the boom guide is the unique Inca building, the Kallanka. This building produces a few of the more powerful units that the Inca have, but more importantly, it allows you to store up to 10 units. And any units that are inside that Kallanka will not count toward your overall population. Note, however, that if the units that are inside the Kallanka cost more than 1 population, such as these Horaka, they will instead simply reduce the population cost by 10. This building plays a major role in how you overpop as Inca in preparation for the end of treaty. Also note that in Age 4, there's a card called Census, which reduces the cost of your Kallankas and also increases their build limit by 1. You should send this card before you start building your Kallankas. Hey guys, so now we're finally on to the boom part of the video. I'm going to be doing this in one take, and I'm going to be doing it live, so I'll actually be playing while I talk to you guys. There's likely, because of this, going to be some small errors, but that's okay because that's part of learning, and it's good to learn what to do if you make some small errors. Just a couple other things about what I'm going to do right at the start of the game, because it's going to be hard for me to explain it as I'm doing it, because it's going to be a lot of stuff all at once. But firstly, I will not be taking any treasures in Age 1, and the reason for this is because treasures in Age 1 can greatly change the way that you play Age 1, and I want this guide to be usable by everyone regardless of their situation, whether they're, you know, just maybe a little newer and maybe can't quite multitask well enough to have a good economy at the beginning and also get good treasures, but also just sometimes treasures on maps are just not very good. And you might just not get what I get, and it might throw you off if you don't know what to do if you are in a situation where you have no good treasures. Also, the first thing that your villagers do is they go and gather these food crates, and they'll do it very badly. They'll bump into each other a lot. Some of them will go on a nice stroll all the way around the crates, or, you know, yeah, it's just not very efficient. So what you want to try to do is you want to try to grab villagers and try to move them into places where they won't block others, or they won't try to walk around. I'll be using a hotkey a lot which ungarrisons my buildings very quickly. This is something that you do want to try to learn if you can, but it's not super important, so if you struggle with it, don't worry about that. Alright, and then the final thing, as you probably know if you've played Age of Empires, whenever you shoot a herd, those animals will go running in the exact opposite direction of wherever you hit them. So, generally what you want to do is get behind the herd and shoot them towards your town center. However, at the start of the game, for the first 10 seconds or so, animals don't move at all if you shoot them. Which means that right at the start of the game, we're going to grab 2 villagers and we're going to shoot one of these deer, whichever is closest to our town center. It'll save us a lot of time later. You'll lose a little bit of food off the deer just from decay, but it's not enough to be concerned about. That about covers it for the very, very, very early game. So I'm going to just try to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it now. And yeah, here we go. Yeah, so this person's going for a bit of a stroll, as you saw there. Didn't do much about it because I kind of wanted you guys to see that. When you get to 100 food, you want to set up villagers to start building so you're not losing time. Also set a hotkey on your war chief and get him going. We do have a treasure here. Normally we would be grabbing that, but again we are not in this case. First villager that gets built, you want to go on food. And then as soon as these guys are done, you also want them to go on food. And then you want to build 2 concha houses, so just like that with 1 villager. Make sure you keep up villager production. I hate when they do this. They just randomly walk to the other side of the building to build it. Don't get that. But whatever. You managed to catch that. Good. Also, I made a mistake there. You want to make sure you only have 3 villagers on food. Everybody else will be on wood. But now we're going to be up to 7 villagers. So since we're not taking any treasures, no gold treasures, we need to now start putting people on gold. So your 8th villager will go to gold at this point. And one thing you can do, since this herd kind of has moved this way, before they start on gold, just go ahead and do that so that the herd starts moving back towards your food gathering villagers. Just a nice little thing you can do to help yourself out. The first deck card we want to send is this exotic hardwoods. It just increases gather speed for wood. Alright, and when you hit 150 wood, you're done with wood gathering. Hang on, I messed this up. But 1 villager, build a market. Okay. All efficiency error there. I was talking, not paying attention. It's gonna happen a lot. Alright, when you're up to 50 gold, you're done with gold as well. Now all your villagers at this point will be on food. Every single one of them. Go ahead and do that so that any new villagers coming off this won't be distracted. Okay, go ahead and kill that animal as well. There we go. Now we have a nice hunt position. We also got a Chusky from our first shipment. You want to just set him to a hotkey. He's a very good explorer, so he's very, very fast. Very, very efficient. Alright, when you get to 14 villagers, so when this says 14, I don't know how long that person's been on gold, but that was a mistake. You want everybody to be on food at this point. Every single person. And you're not building any more villagers at this point. Don't be tempted to do so. Just sit on 14. Because we had that 1 person on gold, I'm a little bit worried that we might have a tiny bit of a delay going to age 2, but I think we'll be okay. My math is right here. We'll be fine. Alright, and you want to age up with the elder. As soon as that's available, age up. Then everybody goes to wood except one villager. You're gonna keep one villager on food. No, we're gonna actually move. We're gonna move one villager over here just to build some concha houses when you're ready to do so. Alright, now that we've moved to age 2, I'm gonna go ahead and take some treasures so that we can clear up some space around here. Because once you hit age 2, it's a lot less important. Alright, so we're gonna build 2 concha houses first. 1, 2. And then when we get to 75 wood this time, after our second one, then we get placer mines from the market. But stay on wood for a bit because you don't want your guys moving to gold quite yet because they will let me get this treasure. Because they will not work as efficiently as they could be before placer mine shows up. So we're gonna go ahead and stay on wood until we get enough for one more concha house. So it's 180 more, or 180. Alright, once you have that, go ahead and place that, and then everybody now is on gold. Go ahead and send your concha house upgrade. If you're staying on food, guys, make sure you keep up your villager production. Grab that treasure now that we're no longer barring ourselves from getting treasure. Get another chasqui when you upgrade. New villagers go to gold. Okay, we're now at 250 gold. So at this point, bad again. Alright, so at this point, we're done with gold production. And the reason we got exactly 250 is because now that with this new one, we want to grab that, which costs 250 gold. That gives us another town center. Now everybody is back on wood, but new villagers at this point will go to gold. And actually, I'm going to put this person on gold when she's done, because I must slightly overrun how many people I want on wood. I went 14 on wood. It'll be normally it'll look like 13 with one more person building. So it'll look like this, and one person will be building concha houses pretty much the time. In this case too, just because again we did have overgather a little bit. All new villagers go to wood, or to gold, sorry. So now let's help out our food villager a little bit by sending one of the wood guys just to shoot the deer back. Wait just a second, grab our next concha house. Put your new town centers as close as you can to multiple resources. So in this case it's really good because it's right next to a hunt and a mine. Up your villager production. You go to wood, you go build concha. Just pay attention, you can only build 12 concha houses, so when we get enough wood for our 12th concha house, we're done with building those. I'll leave that person idle just for a second. Alright, and as soon as you get enough wood for that, everybody is off wood, and instead they're gathering gold. At this point you want to switch it up a little bit. You want to try to just maintain roughly a little bit higher food than gold. Because you want to get 1,200 food and 1,000 gold in order to age. Why do I still have people? I know. Stop this. Gold. Trying to move this hunt into a better position again, but I'm kind of struggling to do so. As you can see, that happens. That's okay. Move this hunt as much as I can. A little bit over on gold still. Gotta make sure you're gonna hit those at roughly the same time, so we're a little bit actually ahead on food in the end. That's okay. Cancel this, and we're going to send the town center tribute with the chief. And then at this point, pretty much everybody is going to go back to wood now. You can keep a few on gold, or sorry, on wood, food, but not too many. You want to be mostly on wood now. 3 is fine. Alright. Idle villager. Alright, so with your first 400 wood, you want to build a farm. And then with your next 100, you want to build a community plaza. And then you want to send llama lifestyle. Then our goal here is another little bit more wood. About 600 is good. Okay. And then you want to start moving people back towards food mostly. We're going to build a town center with our war chief over here. We're going to send another Chusky and just send him off on his way. Make sure to keep exploring, guys. I'm being a little lazy about that just because it's an AI. But, start building llamas out of here as well. I've already been doing that, but explore. Build another one over here. Okay. Now you want a little bit of gold. Actually move people to gold here. Put new guys on this. Alright, and then when you can get this upgrade, so the way natives civilizations work, they only get a few upgrades in their market for food and gold. Most of their upgrades for any type of gathering comes from their estates or their farms. It's pretty unique to native civs. Most of the time when it comes to up there, I'm just gonna send my Cheskies to help build that a little quicker. Okay, you guys will work on food. We're a little behind on gold, so we're gonna put some on gold. Also, we want to send out Tarky. I should have already sent that. A little behind on that. It's okay. Alright, you want to make sure these are maxed out. They are, current. Good. We're gonna send all new villagers to gold now. We want to age when we can. Alright, now that our Tarky is in, we want to set our concha houses together wood instead. We are way over on food. Again, that was definitely an error. Oh, and I forgot to mention, as soon as you fill up your community center, or really even before that, you want to set this to this baby icon. that will make things spawn more quickly, including villagers. So that's why our villager production is like through the roof right now. We are producing like mad. Get another Chasqui. These guys kind of get annoying sometimes. Alright, so when we get to 2,000 food and 1,200 gold, that is when we want to age up. So we're going to be idle just for a second there and age up to the next stage. Keep up villager production. Everyone is going to gold. Every new villager. Alright. Next thing also, you want to build one estate. Again, because we want to get our gold producing stuff going. And make sure to keep getting your farm upgrades, guys. That's very important. Grab this hunt. I cancel all these in favor of just getting them out from places that can actually create them at the moment. And grab that hunt as well. Go mine. Alright, we're almost done with the villager spam. Once that's finished, we are going to concentrate on just getting to age 5. That is all we need to do. Also take these guys off because we're about to get priestesses. And send them there. Send your priestesses onto there, and you're going to switch, now that you're done with your villager spam, you're going to switch to instead spawning priestesses. You also send that to make our, get a little head. We don't need it yet, but we'll need it soon. We're also going to switch this to food, because we're actually a little behind on food now. Interestingly. I think it's because all these hunts started running out. Okay. Keep getting your upgrades. As soon as this is done, we're going to grab that as well. And now that you're done with all your villager spam, we're actually going to click that big button in the Concha house. And what that does is it gives us 4 more villagers, which also does go over the cap of villagers. Okay. Have these guys go help with loot or with food. Yeah, we're definitely over on gold now, which means we're gonna spend a little bit of it, so that's not going to complete waste. Okay, there's another our priestesses. So that gives us up to 7. We want to make sure we don't go over 10, if at all possible. These guys are done. We're gonna send them to food for now. Maybe a little bit on wood. Alright, we can go to age 5. So we're gonna go with the messenger. It ages up very quickly, which is nice. Okay, so we're gonna start working on some wood now. Oh, and now that we are done with our upgrade, we're gonna switch our conchas back to wood. At this point. We're gonna need a lot of wood. Another priestess. We're up to 8, so we only need 2 more. I'm gonna clear all the wood at the front of our base if possible. We're now up to 9, so we just need 1 more. We don't need anything from there yet, so we're not going to. We'll get to that shortly. Right. We're going to take one of these guys, and we're going to start spamming estates. We're going to build a whole bunch of estates. Bunch. Right, and we are also done with priestesses now. Now it's very important, once you have 10, you want to stop, because otherwise you're just wasting time. So you want to go to the gift ceremony, which increases your XP trickle by quite a lot, in fact. Also grab cocoa cultivation, and also now that we're H5, also go with grabbing your wood producing from your market, the last one. I think I was a little delayed on that, so that's a mistake. That's okay. Mistakes are okay. I was talking. Happens. Keep building your estates. You want to get up to 10. The reason you want all these estates, even though you have no intention of working pretty much any of them, is because those estates will give you a trickle of coin. And I will show you that in just a second because the big button finished. There you go. So the trickle is 0.8, which is actually not bad considering it's just free. So it pays for itself actually rather quickly. Alright, now that we have that, we also want to grab our last farming upgrade. How many more? I need 2 more estates. Put them as inaccessible areas as possible because you aren't going to be working them. So it doesn't matter if they're blocked. Makes no difference at all. So you want your farms, which will be being worked, you want those in good spots. Alright, and just like that, we are done with all of that. Now we also want 8 farms, exactly 8, because we're going to have 80 villagers working farms. So, get those down. So this is 1, 2, 3, 5. So we already have 1, so we just need 2. 1 there, and 1 there. Perfect. Make sure you don't have idols. Go ahead and set this to food, because we have so much wood production. Actually, no, I lied. That would, yeah, for sure. Alright, and then at this point is when you want to start moving villagers to food. Just 10 per farm, pretty basic stuff. I'll keep those guys on hunts for now, because they gather from hunts rather quickly. Fun moving everyone. Gonna fill up all those farms. Here. I think this is the farm that's build. Could be wrong on that. We'll figure that out as we need to. Yeah, and you're gonna stay on this XP trickle at the plaza until like 5 seconds before 40 minutes. And I'll explain what you do with this building after 40 minutes when we get a little closer to that time. Alright, so this leaves us in a really good spot. Waiting on these guys to arrive. Their sweet time. You can go ahead and start getting some upgrades like this. You're definitely going to need this. It makes your native warrior stronger. That's extremely important. And all these things, shipments really don't matter, which is why I've been exploring them, or ignoring them. You do need them, but you don't need them like right away. After this, you can concentrate more on your economy at that point. But the main ones you do want, the most important ones, is you want to make sure you have 1 card available for this one, because you're going to trade, obviously. But you also want census, which reduces the cost of your Kallankas and gives you an extra Kallanka. You want American allies. You want Sapa Inca. You want cheaper natives. And then you also want Amara support, because that gives you more of your Chusky. I also tend to, at this point, set my shipments to arrive at the front of my base so that I'm not lost in this mess back here. In about 14 minutes is typically when I start building walls. I will put a wall guide out there later. I'm just going to be building walls just to show you what they should look like. But if you want, if you don't know how to do pillar deletions or how to properly wall, I will put out a video for that another time. Okay, well, once your Kallanka shipment is in, go ahead and start building your Kallanka. You want 5 of them, and it doesn't matter where you put them in because you're going to be deleting these before 40 minutes. Because since you have a limit on how many you can make, you don't want them to be stuck way back here when your army is fighting up here. That makes sense. So you'll be deleting them and moving them up whenever the treaty starts. Maybe less so in a 1v1, but you know, in team games especially, that's really important. As I said in the video, I tend to prefer Carib, but all 3 choices are fine. But for this video, I'm gonna go ahead and go Carib. Alright, so we're gonna grab, at this point, it really starts to not matter at all. You just want to make sure you have 1 shipment available for this, and then at 40 minutes, you want to have 3 shipments available, because you're gonna need to send this, this, and this at 40 minutes, or well, a little before 40 minutes. But we're gonna go ahead and send 1 more, because we should have enough. Keep sending upgrades as you can. You won't be able to get all of them, and that's okay. We're never gonna get this upgrade either. Alright, well, not soon at least, because we shouldn't need it. We're not gonna be working these estates. Also, we're actually a little overtime on when I start usually building walls, so we're gonna go ahead and get that going. Oh, one thing to keep in mind, your villagers will build walls faster if they are not upgraded, the walls that is. So you want to actually save your wall upgrade until very little before the treaty ends. Just a little tip. And again, guys, don't worry too much about, you know, pillar deleting and why I'm doing that or anything like that. I'm gonna make a whole separate video on how to wall. And that'll come out not too long, probably in the next week or so. A pretty simple video, it should only be a couple minutes. So I don't think I mentioned this when I don't think I mentioned this when I was talking about the Kamayo shipment, but I don't generally trade at a certain time necessarily as much as I trade at a certain amount of resources. So generally that amount for me is around 70,000 food. But if I'm shy on that or a little behind, then I generally trade latest at about 7 minutes left in the game. So basically it's either 70,000 food or at 7 minutes, whichever comes first. That's my rule. I'm also going to switch my conchas to food just for a few minutes, just to kind of catch up a little bit. Make sure you're getting all your upgrades that you actually need. Again, we don't really need this. This one also is pretty not great. You don't really need that one. You don't need this either, because that just fattens your llamas faster, and you're not killing your llamas, so what's the point? Whatever upgrades you can get before you trade, the better, just so it makes it a little less of a rush. Made a couple of small errors here, but for the most part, this was a pretty clean run. So this is about where you want to be at this time. A little ahead on food would be better, but again, we made a couple small errors. It happens, especially when I'm talking your ear off. Oh, one other thing. Your war chief can make something called a stronghold, and you wanted to do that as soon as possible. Or well, not as soon as around now is fine. And make your Carib. I usually around this time start making jungle bowmen as well, because they don't cost any gold, so you can kind of just make as many of them as you want. Just kind of, again, it just sort of gets you a little ahead. Gonna make a couple groups, no big deal. Okay, so it might be we're getting a little shy of 70,000. Probably doesn't help that I just made all these guys, which are actually kind of expensive, but that's fine. Yeah, in fact, I'm actually gonna try to get a bigger trade in. Now it should be about 70,000 trade. Once we trade, we'll set our concha houses back to wood at that point. Okay, so it's 7 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and trade. I'm also gonna send a few people to go help this guy because he seems to be struggling a bit with the walls. Let's go start over here. The trade should be just almost exactly 70,000, so that's not too bad in the end. Okay, once the trade goes in, we're gonna switch this back to wood. Good. Alright, now get the remaining upgrades that you need. Do we have? Yeah, we have all 5. And then also we're gonna start working on our overpop. Get a little ahead of that. So what I generally do is I make 15 harakas. And alright, before I say anything else, what you build as your overpop is going to depend ultimately on what you're up against. So if you're up against like the French, for example, they tend to really like building lots of cav. Not always, but some of them do. Or if you're up against like, oh, I don't know, like USA, who tends to build a lot of infantry, then this might change a bit. But my standard build is 15 harakas, 35 bola warriors, and then I kind of split the rest. And then 4 mortars, and then I kind of split the rest between jungle bowmen and chimu runners. That's a pretty standard build. Can't really go wrong with that build. Again, it's not always ideal, but it should work for you most of the time. I'm gonna go ahead and actually no. And again, we're building our Bolo warriors and our Harakas straight into their respective buildings, and they're just sitting in there, so they don't actually cost us population at the moment, which is really nice. Alright, and then you want to stop at 199 population. Exactly. And the reason for this, oh, right, something else just spawned. Alright, I'm gonna do one more. Alright. So the reason we want to stop at exactly 199 population is that for this card, you need 1 population space, exactly 1. It increases the hit points of your Chimu runners by quite a lot, and it gives you 10 additional Chimu runners. So what happens is if we have, for example, exactly 200, we can't send this card, but if we just have 199, so just 1 space, we can. Pretty interesting how that works, but then you also want to send these, which are your just additional native allies. And then after that, it doesn't matter too much. It kind of just depends on what you want. This increases speed of all your units, which is quite useful. This increases the build time, or decreases the build time, sorry. And then these are just random cards that give your units just more punch. We're gonna send melee infantry combat. That's generally my first one that I send. And then now that we have everybody out and ready, we're going to build, or we're going to release all of our Kallankas, empty them all out. There we go. There we go. Now we have quite a sizable overpop, but we're not done yet. Not even close. Yeah, idle villagers. Alright. So now that you have your primary overpop going, what you want to do next is get our explorer over here. Make sure to set him on stand ground as we discussed, so he doesn't go kill himself at the front lines. Bugged. Alright, so yeah, we're gonna send this. Hit points is always good. We're also upgrading our walls now that they are finished. Make sure to build gates. And so now that you're done with all of your primary ones, you want to start sending all the big button village or big button units. So there's quite a few of these in your various buildings. In your community plaza, you get 7 macemen, which honestly might be the only macemen you make in the entire game. These don't give units, they just give other things. I'll explain in a minute. Then in your stronghold, you can send 4 cannons. These are the only cannons you can make of this type, so definitely make use of them because they are quite good. And then the other overpop you can do from your buildings with the big buttons is in your town centers, you can send this button 3 times, and it'll give you more and more plume spearmen each time. So the first time it gives 5. And then the second time, it gives 12. And the third one, make sure to keep your war chief at the back. And the third time it gives 20. And then another thing you want to do is, since these guys can build trading posts, you want to send them up here to build these trading posts as soon as the treaty ends. So you don't have to waste your war chief's time over there. He would much rather be here helping out your group. And then the other thing you want to do with these 2 guys, you get them from your Kallanka big button. They can build any Inca building, including strongholds, which is extremely valuable. So as soon as treaty ends, you want to build 2 strongholds. Also, don't forget to delete these guys. Normally, I'm gonna leave them up because I don't want to lag. But you'll delete them and kind of move them forward, since you can only have 5. And the very last thing you want to do is right before treaty ends, you want to cancel this and instead move to war ceremony. This will increase the damage of all of your units, which makes this much more potent because you have a lot of units, so that's extremely valuable. But yeah, we hit 215. That's not bad. Thanks for watching, everyone. I am live on Twitch most every week. I would appreciate if you guys just swing by, let me know what you thought of the video, and ask any questions you might have, and just say hi. My name on Twitch is the same as on YouTube. It's just GenghisJohn_. Alright. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good one.